Peter Drucker, the famous business guru and management guy, famously said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And by that, he meant that the existing culture in an organization or a country uh, is rather stable in the face of attempts to change it. And uh, strategy changes may just disappear, just may sink into the ocean of culture and not have much noticeable impact. Um, that idea came up recently in a meeting I was at where our police chief quoted Drucker to explain why introducing de-escalation training to a police force is difficult and it meets resistance. And I think that's a very good example of the principle. But let's talk more about how that principle applies to reform and attempts at changing social conditions that may be unjust or unfair. Most attempts at reform probably do fail. And we could understand Drucker's insight as being a description of why they fail. They're just a small effort and they are up against a big cultural barrier. However, there's a but that I would like to insert here based on psychology in the mold of Jean Piaget, the famous child psychologist of the 20th century. Um, those attempts at reform often cause the culture to accommodate to some extent, to change in a small way, and to become a different culture as a result of those efforts at reform. Um, Piaget's view of the mind, of the individual's mind, is captured by two terms, accommodation and assimilation. And he said that in the developing child, for example, they are assimilating information from the environment all the time. But those acts of perception and reception of information change the mind that receives them. The mind has some existing thoughts, perhaps, and some existing understanding, but new information can modify that understanding. So, what I'm suggesting is that the culture is like a huge mind, and it may not seem to change very much in response to reform efforts, but many of those efforts do change the culture a little bit. And I think the lesson to be drawn from this way of looking at Drucker's idea is that reform efforts, intelligent reform efforts, should take account of the current state of the culture and try to be acceptable enough to the existing culture that they can be assimilated, which then gives them a chance to cause the culture to change a little bit, to accommodate new ideas or new ways of conceptualizing what's fair and what's just. Worth thinking about, I think.